What is up, everybody? I am Nate Polvogt, and I am here with my good friend and co-host Joe Pepe for the very first episode of Fantasy in 15. In this series, we'll be covering hot fantasy football topics in 15 minutes or less to get you on your way to winning. Now, the fantasy football season here is just about a week away, and Joe, we're looking at what is the biggest draft weekend of the year. How many drafts do you have going this weekend?
More than I can actually keep count of, which might be a problem, and I should probably talk to somebody.
You know, I've gotten all mine out of the way for the most part. As an
I
analyst,
keep
we're in like
accepting
30
them.
leagues.
Yeah, I
I
keep
know.
accepting them. I have to stop. I have a problem.
See, I've been good this year. I'm only in like 6 different redraft leagues right now, and 5 of them are charity, and one's my home league.
Yeah,
So,
I'm not saying my numbers because my fiance is watching this, and I know for sure I'll get in trouble.
well, see, my wife is in just as many as me for the most
That's
part, so
true.
I
That's
I will
true.
not get in trouble.
Yeah.
So, given that we've got the season starting up, and a lot of you fantasy football enthusiasts out there aren't as hardcore as people like Joe and I, where we're following this all off season. We're making trades in our dynasty leagues. We're very active on the waiver wire. A lot of you are waking up from your fantasy football slumber, Joe. And what we need to do is we need to give you the strategies that you need to win your fantasy football drafts this weekend. Whether you're playing against Steve from accounting, Linda from HR, your stupid cousin Harry that you just want to beat so bad, maybe it's a neighborhood league, maybe it's all of your old high school friends and you guys have been in the league for 20 years together. We're here to help. And today, the first thing we're going to cover is zero RB draft strategy. Now, if you're not familiar with it, here's kind of a breakdown of what it is. Zero RB strategy isn't not drafting a running back. It is waiting until the later rounds of your draft to draft a running back. Now, that can be like the 6th, 7th, 8th, or 9th round. You can go as late as the 10th or 11th round. It depends on your comfort with the format. Joe, when you're drafting zero running back, what is your preference? What rounds are you looking to first target that running back for your squad?
So, I mean, a lot of it depends on how the board is flowing and working out. But I would say if I had to give a general number, I'm looking at that sixth round as the round where I'm like, okay, let me start kind of looking at that tab. Let me look at the running backs, see what we have here. But from like 6 to 10, there's a lot of value there, I think, this year. And I know that's like considered the RB dead zone, but I'm not scared of it because there's a lot of people here who have a chance at good volume and some people here who have a chance at just falling in the end zone a lot. And that's all I'm looking for here. If I start off heavy with my wide receivers and a tight end or a quarterback or however you decide to handle your zero RB. I lost you, Nate. There
That's
we
the
go.
thing about this strategy is that you're not completely punting on the running back position. You're loading up on other positions that, especially in half PPR and PPR formats, can be far more valuable. You're looking at loading up on guys like Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, TJ Hawkinson, David Njoku, getting some of these big tight ends that could be in for volume, or going after some of these wide receivers who you could very easily see surpass a lot of these running backs you're even getting in the early rounds. You want to go after guys like Justin Jefferson. We're going after DeAndre Hopkins in that 4th, 5th, 6th round range, right? Like that's kind of what we're looking to do here. It's an interesting strategy to me. Now, I don't draft this a lot. Joe, how often do you go zero RB in a draft, would you say?
It's not my favorite, and I know we're going to talk about Hero RB tomorrow, and that's going to be the one that I usually go with. But it really depends because if I could get myself a quarterback that has that Konami code, that mobility, that ability to kind of be like a pseudo running back for me, the Jalen Hurts, the Josh Allen, Justin Fields, Lamar Jackson, all in the earlier rounds, somebody that gives me like a slice of a running back with quarterback stats on top of it, that's when I'll usually go zero RB because it makes up for some of the rushing attempts that I'm going to lose out on.
Sure. Now, the thing is, though, if you kind of look at some of these guys you can get in the back end of your draft, look at some of these running backs. You've got Antonio Gibson, who's going to be taking on a much larger role in the Washington offense. JD McKissick is out. It is essentially Brian Robinson Jr., who is going right in that same ADP. They're wide running back 34 and running back 35 right now, according to Fantasy Pros consensus ADP. Got guys like Zach Charbonnet, who we know he's going to get a workload along with Kenneth Walker.
Yeah, I love me some Zach Charbonnet, especially because he's a 3 down style back and he can do it all. And if you look into Kenneth Walker, he was very efficient, basically a home run or bust type runner last year.
Sure.
And this team has a chance to do something special in the NFL. So if he stays inefficient, Pete Carroll is not going to play around. He's going to switch in the guy who actually moves the ball to help out Geno Smith, because Geno Smith isn't the most talented quarterback in the world, but he's accurate and he's smart with it. So he needs somebody to kind of push that needle a bit there. So that's somebody I love. I love me some David Montgomery. I mean, we saw the role with Jamal Williams last year. I'm not expecting that amount of touchdowns this year for David Montgomery, but he will get the ball down low, and he got paid. And I get it. Jahmyr Gibbs is a high pick, but he got paid. You don't pay this guy for nothing, especially in this NFL, in this day and age. That's not what they do. He's going to get some play in it. We've seen what they did last year with 2 different running backs that had talent. So players like David Montgomery, like you said, Antonio Gibson, Zach Charbonnet, like there's a lot of talent you can find. And then my boy James Conner, even though it is ugly in Arizona, he might be the one bright spot.
He very well may be. I said this yesterday, 2 days ago, when they cut Colt McCoy. This is a team that clearly thinks they probably have a shot at getting Caleb Williams in the draft, because they're either now rolling with Clayton Tune or Josh Dobbs. Right?
My God.
They traded Isaiah Simmons. It's a fire sale. They're fire sailing. They don't plan to win. They plan to be last in the division and hopefully worst record in the NFL. But James Conner is the one player in this offense that I think has the potential to actually be very valuable in fantasy.
I agree.
He did it last year. And what does he have as competition? He's got Keontae Ingram.
Yeah, and Corey Clemens, I think, which is not competition. Let's be completely honest.
He's not even worth – Keontae Ingram's barely worth mentioning.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We're either going to have a rookie quarterback who needs a safety net, which would be your running back, or we're going to have Joshua Dobbs in the same situation. But the thing that people need to realize when it comes to the James Conner situation is that it's actually more about the defense, because it's putrid, it's atrocious. It's whatever term you want to put to it. But how do you keep a bad defense off the field and hide it as a new rookie head coach? You slow the game down, and you slow it down with that aging running back who has a potential out next year on a team that is going to be rebuilding next year. So you run him until the wheels fall off because you have no reason to protect him.
100%. I'm looking at the ADP here. So if we're talking 6th round, if you're going to wait until the 6th round to get a running back, here's a couple more guys I think are really solid anchor backs that you can get in that 6th round. We've got Rachaad White, who Sean Tucker has looked very good. But again, this is a team whose defense is bad, and Baker Mayfield's their starting quarterback for now. Yeah. It could be Kyle Trask at some point. They're going to keep the ball on the ground. Yeah. This is a team that's going to be a total flip.
Yeah, and the one thing that just came out that I was reading, and I love to give the person the kudos to it, but I can't remember it, is that Baker Mayfield checked down the ball the most in the last season. Between the Panthers and the Rams, he had the most checkdowns to running backs. He had one of the highest percentages of it. So not just running, there's going to be checkdowns. And for a team that's going to be behind against prevent defenses most of the time, in my opinion, that's going to be beautiful.
Well, Rachaad White had 60 targets last season. Yeah. He was somewhere in the neighborhood of 75 to 80% catch rate. So, right? And this is a guy who's going in the 6th round or later. And a lot of this depends on your league, guys.
Yeah.
Because you might see a guy like J.K. Dobbins fall in the 5th, 6th, 7th round because people don't understand the change on offense in Baltimore, what this team could possibly be. And J.K. Dobbins now has pass catching upside in the Baltimore offense, which changes who he is. And if your league mates are sleeping on a guy like that, you grab him in the 6th or 7th round.
Yeah.
Now, once you've gotten that kind of, I call it your anchor running back, right? Your big name, first guy off the board, your A.J. Dillon, your Antonio Gibson, whoever you wait for to get in that later rounds. If you wait a little bit later, you might be looking at Jerick McKinnon, Devin Achane, Jaylen Warren, and some of those guys who are still going to get work, even though these are kind of crowded backfields. Again, passing work. When you're drafting 0 RB and that first running back, what you want to get is someone who's going to get passing work. Because while they might not be getting the volume of carries that some of these higher end elite running backs are getting, they're going to get the PPR work. They're going to get those half PPR to full PPR points. Tyler Algier, I think, is someone a lot of people are sleeping on right now. He's going as a running back 49. He's going in the 13th to 14th round.
Okay. Yeah, and I got a guy right by there with Kenneth Gainwell, and I know it's going to sound like I'm a homer, but look at the playoff run, look at the offseason, look at the preseason games, the practices. Who gets trusted in the 4-minute drills? Who's trusted in the 2-minute drills? Who is trusted in big moments? It was Kenneth Gainwell because he could block and he can catch the ball and he does what Nick Sirianni wants to do. Yeah, sometimes we could read the advanced stats and they're amazing and they're beautiful and it's so much fun for Twitter engagement or X engagement, whatever you want to call it nowadays. But watch the game because the eye test tells it all.
Right. Oh, 100%. Guys who you can get now, let's kind of talk about guys past that anchor stage. Guys who you're targeting because you're looking at their situation. They might not be the number one back week one. And if you look at the NFL and you see what it is these days, most of these backfields are going to be running back by committee. Yeah. So what does each back do well? A guy like Roschon Johnson has a real opportunity to take over this backfield by like week 5 or week 6, or at the very least, he earns enough of a share to be a flex play or an RB2.
Yeah.
Kendre Miller, I think, is a guy we could see the same thing. Yes, Alvin Kamara is going to be back after 4 games, but what was Kamara last season? We saw him starting to slow down. Mm-hmm. And his type of back, we see these guys slow down. These are the situations you want to look for when you're drafting 0 RB. People that are being slept on by the majority of owners because of a situation, but there's a pathway to them getting work.
Yes, I fully agree. And when it comes to like Roschon Johnson, the Bears threw the ball at the lowest percentage in the NFL. That's not going to be the same, but they're not going to just automatically jump up into the top 10 of the NFL in passing. They're still going to be either in the middle or at the bottom, and that's great for a running back. And Roschon Johnson has shown all preseason, he's one of the people highlighting in pass blocking drills. And again, important because that'll put him in on 3rd down, which will add into the pass catching ability and chances. So it's stuff like that. Like you said, Kendre Miller, because Kamara is kind of over the hill, and I love Jamal Williams, but he's not that talented. He just fell into the end zone a lot.
Right.
So you have to look for that upside. Like I know Tank Bigsby's a little bit higher, but a guy like him, because the checkdowns in Jacksonville aren't that high. So in that scenario, it sucks. But Tank Bigsby is a little bit bigger than Travis Etienne. So you got goal line duties there. You have Jeff Wilson Jr., because Miami hasn't gone out and gotten a running back like a Jonathan Taylor or Dalvin Cook. So he could be the starter. And when he came in, they split that, and he got the higher percentage of the split. So you got to pay attention to the situations, and you gotta hit these people. You got to get 3-4 of them so that you're strong wide receivers and you give yourself a lot of dart throws.
Oh, absolutely. Now, here's a backfield, Joe. Now, I want to get your opinion on this. And we'll round out our very first fantasy in 15 with this backfield. The Indianapolis Colts. The saga with Jonathan Taylor, we all know what happened. They didn't trade him. And we're getting reports that Irsay and company was asking outlandish price for Jonathan Taylor. They wanted first-round picks and Jalen Waddle from Miami. And that's insane, especially for a guy who wasn't activated from the PUP list.
Yeah.
So now Jonathan Taylor, he's out for the first 4 games regardless. And we know that he's not even really hurt.
Yeah.
Which is the strangest thing about all of this.
Jim Irsay decided that, Daniel Snyder left and he wants to be the craziest owner in the NFL. And it's wild. I don't know why he thought he was getting it, but you're right. Like my person is going to be the rookie with Evan Hull that I'm chasing.
Same.
That's who I want to chase, because I've seen Zach Moss, and Zach Moss ain't it. It's just that simple. You could see it. Deion Jackson is nice, but he hasn't taken the ball and ran with it to hit like a football analogy. So give me the rookie, give me somebody with some good scores in the combines and all of that, and I'll take that shot.
Well, and the rookie who has looked good in camp and in preseason games, look at their ADP right now. Zach Moss, running back 69. Deion Jackson, running back 70. Evan Hull, running back 72. These are guys who are going largely undrafted right now.
Yep.
I will always and forever, and I'm going to talk about this in every draft strategy episode we do not, unless you have to, ESPN makes you. But if you're on a platform if you're on MFL or if you're on Sleeper, which you really should be on Sleeper, not a sponsor yet, don't draft defenses.
You don't have to.
Don't draft kickers.
No,
you can stream them all season. You can stream them all season.
Yeah.
With those last 2 picks in your draft, picks 15, 16, or 17 and 18, depending on how deep your benches are and what your roster construction is, get Evan Hull.
Yeah. And
get Evan Hull and Zach Moss, just in case.
I was going to say, to be honest, just grab a couple of them. It's not my favorite thing. And it kind of reminds me of the old New England Patriots. Like, who's got the lowest ADP? I'll take them all out of it. Like, I'll catch that lowest one. And that's going to be Evan Hull right now. And like you said, you could get a couple of them, but I'm not touching Zach Moss with a 10-foot pole. I'd rather get Deion Jackson and Evan Hull. But to each their own on that one, because one of them is going to explode, and I'd rather you have that on your roster instead of like Brandon McManus, who you can get like 12 versions of Brandon McManus before week 1.
Right. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to our very first episode of Fantasy in 15. We hope that this zero RB strategy guide helped you. We gave you some targets. Now go out there and win some fantasy football drafts.